guys, welcome to the Desi Trip podcast with me, Viraj, and my partner in crime, Akshay. Today we have with us Dhanya and Kaizin, and we're going to discuss mental health with them. So, Dhanya, do you want to start and tell us about yourself, and then Kaizin, you can speak? Yeah.
So I did my undergrad at Christ University, and then I did my master's. I just finished it at the University of San Diego, and I did it in clinical mental health counseling. And I have been working with the homeless for around 2 years now, and then the last year I worked with kids impacted by homelessness, and I did individual therapy and group therapy for them.
That's
Mhm.
great, man.
So you also grew up in Bangalore, right?
I grew up in Bangalore. Yes.
Okay,
And
interesting.
Kai?
So I graduated from Xavier. I studied sociology honors,
Mhm.
and I did my master's from TISS, which is Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Bombay. So I studied
Mm-hmm.
mental health from there, and I've worked because like sports is such a major part of my life. I've worked a lot with footballers, and I did my thesis on mental health in footballers. And currently, I'm interning with the World Players Union for professional footballers. So we're coming up with a mental health toolkit. So
That's
Oh wow.
cool, man.
So wait, I have
So,
a quick question for you guys. Sorry, Dhania, you were saying something? Go ahead.
No, I just said that's awesome.
Okay,
right
okay.
back to you.
Yeah.
So my question to you is like, how did you guys eventually decide that this is something you wanted to do professionally?
You go first. If you want me
Okay.
to.
Yeah. So for me, I think for a long time when I was in college, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I was always confused. And I just started doing random internships. I remember I did an HR internship, and I absolutely hated it. Like I knew that wasn't for me. I didn't want a desk job. It just didn't suit my personality. And I was like, this is not what I want to do. And I remember my supervisor was like, why don't you try different internships instead of sticking to one and see what you're interested in? So then the next year I did an internship in Delhi at Fortis, and it was a counseling internship. And I remember I was like the first person to be there, the last person to leave. I was excited to go the next day. And I don't think I've ever been that motivated in my life for anything. So the fact that I was that motivated to like wake up, because I saw like the power of therapy and how much of a difference it made on like people's lives. And I'm like, if I could make a difference in some way, this is like what I want to do. So I think that's where it started.
So in brief, could you tell us what exactly you were doing at Fortis?
Yeah,
Like
so it
what
was
kind of therapy were you, what kind of patients or subjects were you dealing with?
yeah, so for me, I was just an intern. So I was mostly observing clinical psychologists and counseling psychologists. And I also got to work with an art therapist. So I would just basically observe their sessions. I
Okay.
got to do a lot of work with some of the clients. Like I worked with a lot of kids there, which was nice. I would just talk to them. A lot of them were hospitalized for different reasons. So I would just like make visits and talk to them, see how they're feeling, give them
Mm-hmm.
support in whatever way they needed. And then I also did a lot of like IQ tests and a lot of testing, which wasn't my favorite part. That's why I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
counseling, not clinical psychology. But at least I learned that way. So yeah.
Okay. So
right.
what about you, Kaizin?
Um, how did I get into this field, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I
How
think
did you know you wanted to study this? Like,
uh,
or like what drew you to it?
I think initially it's the same as what she mentioned. Like I studied commerce and accounts in 11, 12, and I hated that.
Condolences.
Oh my god, I hated that. But
Moments silence.
yeah, but the good thing is that I had that with psychology, and so I think that was like what literally saved me because I realized that I seriously enjoyed studying that. And then again, similar to you, because psychology is very clinically oriented, but that wasn't
Right.
something that I wanted to like kind of go into a more um, wider perspective of it. And so, and that's why I chose sociology and then mental health. But the main thing is, I realized that so I'm kind of an anxious person, and I've
Mm.
like especially before like maybe sports day or something, I used to feel a lot of anxiety. And then in school, nobody talks about that. And later
Mm-hmm.
on, when I was in 11, 12, and then in college, I realized that it's everywhere, that there's so many people going through this just silently. And I think that's kind of what led me to want to go into that, because no one was doing that. Even when I said that, okay, I want to go into this, people were like, why? And are you sure? And in India, it's like, yeah, I think it's super relevant. And I mean, I kind of just decided that that's what I want to do.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome that you guys have the courage to follow through on your passions like that. And just one thing that you mentioned, you said that, before a sporting event, you felt some levels of anxiety. Like maybe Viraj can go into, different experiences with different experiences with mental health in more detail. But that's something I personally faced myself. Like when I was growing up, like I had this, macho Indian outlook that, none of this affects me. My mental health is absolutely fine. Like I'm
Right.
not an anxious person or not. But then there were points when I realized that, okay, like the way I'm feeling right now, this is not normal. Like this is anxiety. And then I started doing a bit of reading, and then I had to make some changes with my life. But yeah, that's just something I wanted to say.
Just going off what Akshay just said, just as you mentioned that, I kind of relate to it now, but at that point I didn't think it was anxiety because I had no knowledge on the subject. It was back in school when I used to play cricket for school. Every time before I would go to bat, I would be so scared and get so anxious, I'd get heavy chested. The
Mm.
fear of failure was so real, like of not doing well. And at one point I remember, just to feel better, I started scribbling believe and faith and belief in my arm, and I would just read that before every ball, and it helped me so much. And at that point I didn't realize that that's just my escape, like I'm just telling myself these things to feel better. I mean, it was good, but also it stemmed from anxiety, and I didn't know at the time because nobody spoke to me about it. And like
Yeah.
in my team, they used to say, again, you're writing with a pen. Like, again, what is wrong with you? Why do you have to write this shit? You know you're good. Like, and I'd be like, dude, I don't know how to express this, but I can't. I have to write something on my arm to remind myself before every ball.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
Interesting.
I feel like it was so normalized to be nervous before an event.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if you try sharing it, people would be like, yeah, that's normal, you feel it. But no one really tried to understand the extent to which it was, or how it affected your
Exactly.
behavior, or how it affected just your mental peace. Like it used to be so bad. Like I wouldn't get sleep. And I can remember this like properly even when I was in class 4 and 5. So I was like a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old, and I used to be so scared, like before sports day or before a basketball match, and I wouldn't get
Mm-hmm.
sleep. So it was pretty bad. But
Dude, Kai, did it get worse for you during, like, say, an intermart where there'd be a larger crowd of people watching you?
for me, yeah, Intermat, obviously, that was like, I mean,
Yeah.
there's so much pressure which comes with that. But I would actually get more anxious before athletics. Basketball was, I was still more comfortable, I feel. Plus, you have people around you, it's not so isolating. You're playing with a
Mm-hmm.
Right.
team. So that does help. On sports day, you're like just alone and can get pretty.
Yeah, I have a good experience for this. Like, see, I played a couple of sports and all, and like we did MUN and stuff like that.
Tried to play a couple of sports, didn't
Oh,
actually
okay,
play.
yeah, please. Inter-house football and all, what is that?
Trying an
Anyway, so like
attempt.
we played a
Oh,
couple of
that's
sports,
true
and
in college.
no, but like when you're playing in a team sport, I feel like, yeah, on some level you're nervous, but the burden is shared by the other 10 people on your team, right? The most nerve-wracking experience I ever had in my life was when I participated in my first inter-house debate. So this was my first debate, and like we were up on stage, and obviously everyone is sitting and they're minding their own business. Half of them are not even listening, right? Because they're just bored and they've been forced to come and listen. But I
Yeah.
just remember standing up on the podium, and then when I had to make my speech, it was just like 4.5 minutes. But fuck, I could feel my legs like just shaking, right? My legs were literally just shaking and vibrating, and I was just worried that, man, I hope no one can see this. Like, and even though I was behind the podium, I was 100% sure that people could understand that my legs were moving like this. So
Yeah.
it was just a very, very, very nerve-wracking experience, and it got way better over time. But yeah, that's one of the worst cases of anxiety I've had in my life, because I felt like all eyes were on me.
Like public speaking anxiety,
Yeah.
Yeah,
basically,
yeah,
right?
and it's funny
Yeah,
because
I
I read this
struggle with
somewhere
that a lot.
else. Yeah, I read this somewhere else that a lot of people said that they would rather die than speak in public. This people
Yes.
actually wrote this. So
Yeah.
there was a poll. So that's
Dhanya,
funny.
you were saying that you also suffered like some similar
With
situation with
public
public
speaking
speaking,
and
right? Yeah, do you want to
yeah,
tell us
public
about
speaking
it?
anxiety is actually, I think, the number one type of anxiety that people, I think number two was death, and public speaking was number one. I read this somewhere. And it's so crazy. I mean, for me, I've definitely my whole life, I think I've been pretty good with like social communication. If I'm like around people, I'm not nervous about talking or saying whatever's on my mind. But if I'm put
Mm.
in like a professional setting, that is it. Like I'm shitting my pants, my like legs are shaking, I can't breathe, I can't think, everything goes blank. And like I don't know why, it's just every single, now I do, now I know it's anxiety, but before I didn't know what it was. And everyone's like, you're fine, you'll be fine, you seem fine when you talk. But I'm not. Like my the same thing, actually, my legs are shaking. I feel like now, because I've understood what it is, I like try to do different things before I talk, which has helped me. And also I had, my confidence wasn't very high, so I think that
Sure.
also caused a lot of anxiety, because I thought everyone was judging me, everyone was better than I was. I am like, I can't, who's going to listen to me, I have nothing to add. But then like
So
I
this
think
is
with
funny
time,
actually. You and Kaizin are kind of busting the bubble. So since you guys have studied mental health, you're kind of saying that, like from what you just said, that you are vulnerable as well. Is that correct?
Oh,
100%.
Yeah.
Interesting. So no one's safe.
no one. That's
Everyone's.
like, but I've
I was going
actually
to use the
heard
word
this.
fucked, but maybe not.
I've heard it so many times. Like people are like, just because they expect that because you're in mental health or you're a psychologist or psychiatrist, that you know how
Huh.
to sort your shit out.
You're
Okay.
And
perfect.
that's
Okay. Does
completely
that frustrate you guys? Like you guys can open up over here. This is a safe space.
fine.
Okay,
Thank you.
interesting. I think we should get into it now. Viraj, do you want to start off
No, no,
or
it's
like?
fine. This is a good question because I have come across people like I was telling Kai this earlier that I had read somewhere that a lot of psychologists have a fixed amount of time per week they can work legally. I think it's because of the mental toll it takes on these people hearing about other people. And actually, a lot of people quit the profession because they can't take it anymore. Like they can't take people talking to them about their issues a lot, and it takes a lot of willpower and training. So this in my head is like the biggest lie that people have in their heads, is that people who are professionals in the field are immune to mental health issues or mental illnesses.
Yeah, there should be
Yeah.
some kind of superhuman people
Yeah.
who can handle large cognitive loads.
Yeah. But like, yeah, so my
Because
first question from what the four of us, like we just started with, I wanted to ask was, so why do you think mental health is so important? Because now we know that this is something that we all faced, right, at an early age, but none of us spoke about it. And do you think it's important for schools, and why is it important for schools or at a young age for someone to be told about this and how they can handle it?
You
you
want to
wanna
go,
go?
Kaizin?
Okay, sure. I'll go ahead. Um, why is mental health important? Like I've asked myself this question many times,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of difficult to answer. But if I had to, I would say it's important because it's everything. And when I say that, I mean like, so I'm gonna speak a lot. Like I'm gonna relate a lot of it to sports because
Yeah, yeah, that's
I'm
fine.
like,
Right.
so thing is like even Johan Cruyff, who was one of like the greatest masterminds in football, he said that you play with your mind, like you play football with your mind and your feet just help you. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a beautiful way of explaining it because everything we do, it starts over here. And that's as simple as it is. Like that is why it's so important. And it's so important for us to have that conversation from a young age because I think all four of us have spoken about our experiences when we were kids, and all four of us have that similar thing that we were experiencing this, but we didn't know what it was. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
we didn't know that it's something called anxiety or how to deal with it, or it was just like kind of normalized. So I think it's important because everything is affected by your mental health.
So
Mm-hmm.
just off that, Kai, when was the first time you had the discussion about mental health with anyone, like what it is and Do you remember?
I don't know. Like, to be honest, it started um, in front of a laptop. Like, that's the first conversation I had was like with myself. What is this? What am I experiencing? And like, Google the symptoms and try and figure out what it was. And okay, so I have this condition called misophonia, which is basically a sound sensitivity issue. And I remember the first time going back, like when I was 9 or 10 years old, and I had no idea what it was. So I felt extremely isolated. I felt extremely guilty. There's a lot of shame attached to it and all. And I had absolutely no idea what it was until I think class 11 or 12, maybe, when I started studying psychology. Then I
Mm-hmm.
started figuring out what it was. And it was only later that I actually started opening up about it and talking about it. Like, even till 2 years back, maybe just 6, 7 people in my life knew that I was experiencing this, and I've been experiencing it since I can remember. So,
So since I'm not aware of what it is, what exactly is
phobia.
phobia? Yeah.
It's a sound sensitivity issue, basically, where
Okay.
you get extremely triggered by repetitive noises, but it
Okay.
can also be repetitive movements.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I experience is like huge amounts of like rage, panic,
Mm-hmm.
um, complete stress, and my body goes into like this fight or flight mode. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it is kind of weird. Like, even when I speak about it, I'm like, it's weird because, so for one example is like um the clicking of a mouse. Like, if I hear that, I need to like run out of the room. I can't deal with
Okay.
it. And because it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
new, not much research is done on it. There's no like not much treatment. So the only thing right now is to escape from it. So I just
Mm-hmm.
put on earphones or I run away from it. But the basic thing is that you have a huge emotional reaction to certain trigger sounds, and those trigger sounds can be different for different people.
Mhm. That's what I find so amazing about the human mind, that like I see so many people, talk about their specific nuances, and it amazes me that there's so many facets of the human mind, right? Like there's
I
just
know.
so many different ways things work. So that's pretty
Yeah.
interesting. I just want to go back to some of the questions that I had thought of so that we can quickly get the structured ones out of the way, because I'm sure that you guys had a chance to take a look at those questions and maybe think of some answers. So I'm going to go to the first one. Maybe Dhanya, you can start off by answering this. I believe the first question was, what's your response to people who say that mental health does not exist, and to
Mhm.
people who say that yes, it does exist, but this is not something that affects me?
Yeah. I definitely think I try to first have a conversation with them and like understand where they're coming from and why they feel that way. And I feel like I back up like everything that Kai said, I agree with. I think that like um for a long time, especially in India, I think this is definitely something that's said a lot back home. Something that was said for me growing up too is like, oh, mental health doesn't exist. You'll be fine. You'll get over it. Don't make it a
Hmm.
big deal. And it's like that
Someone
you
told
don't.
me that 2 days ago. Okay, didn't tell me, but I heard someone say this 2 days ago after the Susan. Okay, I don't. Okay, I mentioned his name anyways. After his death, someone was telling a friend of mine on the phone saying that, yeah, mental health doesn't exist. It's just nonsense. He was probably doing some drugs or crime. But yeah,
Did
go
you
on.
see it online?
No, I heard this. I
Oh,
heard this. Yes.
yeah. So I think especially now there's so much more awareness of mental health and how important
Hmm.
it is, and there's so much research out there. So I think it's important for us when we hear something like that to challenge it, because how else are we going to create awareness if we don't speak up, right? So I think
Yeah,
it's
Dhanya,
important.
that's correct. But why do you feel that some people don't believe that mental health exists in the first place? Like, what would cause someone to believe that?
I think it's tied a lot into how you're brought up and what type of values you're brought up with. I mean, I see it with like my own dad, in my family. I feel like I disagree with my family on a lot of things is because they hold on to their values so strongly and what they're brought up with, and they think that is what is right. I have experienced life, I've gone through your age, and this is what is right. But it's like at the
Hmm.
same time, the world is changing every single minute. And I feel like that's why sometimes we have to have more of an open mind to understand, okay, like why are so many people talking about this? Why are so many people talking about how they struggle with mental health, how much of a difference it made on their life, what they went through? There's a reason why so many people are coming out with that. So I think I think people just are like in denial. They don't want to listen to it because in their heads they are right, and like they went through it too. They are perfectly fine. Even if they could be struggling in a different way, they probably don't know, like how we didn't know what anxiety was when we were growing up. They probably don't know what it is. And so they might think it's just an emotion, it's just whatever it is, but I'll get over it, And so I think that's probably one of the reasons. I don't know, Kai, if you have another perspective, or Viraj.
One second, Viraj, let Kai answer the question as well.
Yeah, no problem. No, Kai, go ahead. Then I had a question. I'll go ahead after that.
No, I think I agree with everything that you said, but it I think um, our mental health literacy is just so bad, and I think that's in every single country. It's a problem because, to be
Everywhere,
honest,
yeah.
even if you're looking at like an educated person in India, if you ask them what is anxiety, what is depression, personally, I feel you're gonna get an answer which is like come out of like pop culture. So you've seen it in a movie or you've seen it on social media and you're laying it out there. It's no fault of that person. I'm not saying it's their fault, but as a society, that's what it is. We don't really know what these issues are. And that's why, and I think I have a problem when people also trivialize it and use it like so commonly, like I'm depressed, or like, oh my god, I have OCD. And
I know.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's not, because again, do you know what OCD really is? And
exactly.
do you know what depression really is? And if you're going to use it so lightly, you're trivializing someone's experience of it. So I think we have to be
Okay.
so careful about the language that we use. But that's only going to come if we have some sort of literacy of it. You can't just know. It's something I personally feel that we need to study and we need to be exposed to it at a school level.
Do you
Or
think also the mental health or the mental health situation has been made tougher for us because it's tougher for us to make mistakes these days, and the world is so much more smaller that there's a lot more pressure on you to say and do the right things all the time. And a lot, I think what I was reading was that there are a lot more cases now. I mean, I'm sure it was also because that at that point there was not enough knowledge about the subject, but also I think there are it's a lot more common for people to have mental health issues now, and that's because of social media and social media trials for that matter, or everyone trying to remind you you're wrong or you're not saying the right things all the time and you have to be on your A game all the time.
And you're not fitting into the herd like us, so we're going to
Yeah.
cuss you out. You have to say exactly what we say
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
think what we think.
Also, like this sorry, just one more point to add to what he said, is quickly that, like, recently I've been seeing people post a lot of things on social media and being hypocrites online. I mean, and also thinking that if we don't post online, we don't have a stance on this matter. I think people giving social media so much importance compared to real life is also, I think, a big factor in how people perceive themselves these days and why it's leading to so many issues. But I just wanted to know what you guys think about that, and maybe if that's one of the reasons that triggers a lot of people.
I think growing up, I think all of us, like, we have these milestones which we think we have to achieve, and we're taught that from a young age. I don't know who, I've never directly been told this, but like, you finish school when you're 18, you finish undergrad when you're 21, you do your master's after that, you get married by like 27 or 28, you have kids before this, and everything is like told to us. And then there comes a lot of anxiety, a lot of pressure when you don't achieve those things. Like, and I am also like, when I was like, even now, I'm thinking I'm like 25. What have I done? What am I supposed to do? And
Yeah,
you just have to realize that you're not supposed to do anything. Like,
exactly.
it's been taught, it's been drilled into our heads. And I think the most beautiful thing that a human being can do is unlearn the things that we have been forced to learn since we were kids. And so a lot of pressure comes from that itself. And with social media specifically, I feel like social media is a really messed up representation of reality. And I feel like human beings experience like so many different emotions. There's a huge spectrum of emotions. But if you think about it, you're only posting the good times, the happy times, you're only posting things that you want other people to see. So we have to
Mm-hmm.
reminding ourselves that social media is not a actual representation of someone's life. And if we keep reminding ourselves that, so I think over here something that's really important is your self talk, like what you say to yourself. And I think it's important to just remember that it's not real. It's the people sitting behind the computers telling you what you want, sharing their opinion without any consequence. And you, it's it's unfortunately only on us how we take that.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned a bit about self-talk. Like this is not something we planned on getting into, but since you brought it up, I just remembered that I saw something called a rice experiment online. Have you guys heard about it?
Mm-mm.
So it's basically you take three jars. Okay, you guys can Google it if you're listening. Is you take three
Mm-hmm.
identical jars, put in a dollop of rice into each jar, and you seal it. Okay, so it's all identical, and on each jar you put a label. Okay, so one is hate, one is love, and one is ignore. And over the course of 30 days you say bad things to hate, you say good things to love, and you just don't do anything to ignore. And I saw there are thousands of videos online where people share the results of it, and I was like, okay, this cannot be true, right? This cannot be true. So I have a mind like this, I had to go and test it. Okay, so I went to the store, I bought the jars, I cooked the rice, I put it in, and over 30 days I tracked every day that I stuck to my habit, and I did what I was supposed to, right? I spent a minute
Mm-hmm.
each day acting a certain way to each of the jars. And I have the pictures on my phone. I'm probably going to put it up over here, but we got exactly the results that people said we'd get. And this is an experiment that's been done by IKEA as well. So it's basically about the power of positive talk and positive affirmations. So that kind of changed my mind. After that experiment, like I was really hesitant to say bad shit. Like even when my girlfriend or anyone else I know just says anything bad, like, oh man, our lives are fucked, I'm like, okay, just don't say that, because like that experiment has kind of changed the way I think about a few things. So, like, what
Yeah.
do you believe about positive self-talk? Is that like something that people should be doing?
100%.
Yes. 100%. I think positive affirmations and positive self-talk takes you such a long way. And like
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning, when you start doing it, it might feel like it's not like because you don't believe in it. But I feel like the more you practice it and the more you tell yourself, you look at things positively and you practice it. Like, and there's like small things that you can do, like, just like practicing self-compassion towards yourself, right? Or like
Mm-hmm.
a gratitude journal. It can be what, two sentences. What are like two things you're grateful for in your day, you know? And there's like small things you can do. And I feel like the more you practice it, then the more you're able to practice positive thinking easily. But it takes time, but you can get there. You just have to like tell yourself that, I will, like, if I just keep doing this, I will be able to practice it. Like you said, it worked for you. So,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of times I would think this is just some kind of hippie BS talk, like where, this is some wishy-washy stuff, doesn't make sense. But then I was watching a couple of videos of some top athletes. Like, I remember Floyd Mayweather, insane boxer. Um, Forgetting who else. Like a couple of footballers. Like some of them said that they had a couple of statements that stuck on their mirror. So every morning when they're brushing their teeth, they just kind of rehearse the same words, and they keep talking to themselves throughout the day. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. But I think the first step is that you have to become super conscious and aware of what it is. So, like, because often if you ask someone what's your self talk, they might say it's not that bad. But then when you really introspect, you realize that, like, shit, I'm pretty harsh on myself. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think the first thing is like stopping and taking a moment to like check in to how you're feeling. And when you're in a situation, be like, how did I react to that? Or and once you're aware of that, that's the
Mm-hmm.
only time you can change it. So you first
correct.
have to get really conscious and aware about what you're thinking. And like to make it a little easier, like an example is say the stage fright thing. So you're probably thinking like, oh my God, there are so many people looking at me. I'm so embarrassed. What if I say something wrong? So that's like your negative self-talk, which you have to like become aware of. And then how can you change that into positive things? Like you have to tell yourself that, okay, I'm actually taking a step. I'm being confident. I'm coming up here. It's okay if I say something which doesn't make sense. I'm at
True.
least up here. I'm getting out of my comfort zone. So that's how you kind of change your self-talk.
True, Kaisin, but you said that, a lot of times we just need to take a pause and become more self-aware. A lot of people who are listening to this, and even myself, like we go throughout the day, it's like a non-stop train ride, right? From stop to stop to stop. And you really don't get a time, you don't have the time to sit down and just take a deep breath. So like, how do we do that? Because, life is like very fast-paced these
I
days.
think I think you do have the time. I think we can make the time, especially when we're feeling like overwhelmed or we're feeling something. We can always take a second and be like, what am I really feeling? Because often what happens is like even when you might feel angry at that moment, when you sit down, you're like, shit, I'm actually feeling upset or I'm actually feeling sad or and then you realize, okay, how do I get out of this or what can I do to make it better? But if you don't take that moment, you're just going to ride on that anger. So I think it's helpful, as fast paced as our lives are, and like I understand that it is, I think it's super important to take literally a minute, like just 1 minute to like sit down and compose yourself and really think like, what am I experiencing right now and what am I actually feeling?
Yeah.
So Akshay, if I can add to that point, like I mean, personally, I think one change I made in general to become more self-aware was every morning. So when you wake up, spend 5 minutes, just spend 5 minutes, just evaluating what you want to achieve for the rest of your day, and how you feel in that moment when you wake up, and similarly doing the same thing at night. At the end of the day, evaluating where you stand in terms of how you feel and how your day went, and everything, just having that moment to yourself. And I mean, this, that for a lot of times, I've not been able to do it. And so to run away from everything, I delete social media and I switch off my phone and I just be with myself, right? I know that it's not possible a lot of the time. So I think personally, at least from my experience, I think it starts with just 5 minutes of your day, or like 1 minute, like I said, just in like any point, and it does make a big difference. Like it might sound like, oh, 1 minute's not gonna make any difference, but it does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I 100% agree with everything you said, and like how you said, Kai, like you make the time. You can make the time. I mean, we definitely have at least 1 to 5 minutes in our day where we can focus on ourselves for a minute and focus on how we're feeling. If it's even like we're at work, right, or we're at school, wherever we are, and we're feeling really overwhelmed or we're feeling stressed, we're feeling anxious, you need to take a step out. Go outside, get some air, breathe, see how you're feeling. If you're feeling like you're ready to go in, then go in. I mean, whatever you're supposed to do, you can do it a minute later or 2 minutes later, 5 minutes later, it doesn't matter. Take the time that you need. And I think there's this thing called, when you were all talking, I was thinking about it. It works for some people, it doesn't work. I'm not saying this works for everyone, but I've definitely seen a lot of people that I know in my program and colleagues have used it. So it's called worry time. And I don't know if you've heard about this, Kai. So it's basically in your day, um, you keep like half an hour or an hour, how much ever time you need, 10 minutes, it doesn't matter, where you worry about the things that like you would usually worry about. So in your day, for example, if I'm worrying about like the next, I have to pack my entire room today, right? But right now I'm talking to all of you, so there's no point in worrying about it. I want to try to stay present right now with all of you. So then I tell myself, wait, during my worry time at 10:30, I will worry about whatever I need to worry about at that time. And then after that, I'll start actually doing what I need to do. So it does, I'm not saying it works for everyone, but it definitely has worked for a lot of people. So you keep a worry time during your day and you try to worry about everything you could possibly worry about at that time. And then you carry on and tell yourself, I will only worry during the worry time.
That's
Okay.
pretty
And it's
interesting.
Interesting.
obviously not the most practical way, because of course during your day you might be faced with some other stressor and worry about it. But I think it's like um, It's about telling yourself. Yeah, Viraj.
Okay, Kai, go first. Sorry.
No, I was just go ahead.
No, say.
I had nothing. It's just mimicking you.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
That's good. We like that.
Yeah. No, my so basically at this point, right, we're talking about understanding ourselves and stuff like that, right? Like how we can understand how the way we think and how we can go about, improving ourselves. So my question that I had was, how do you personally identify if you have symptoms of a mental illness, or like, how do you have that discussion with yourselves? Because a lot of the times, even including me, in the past, I've ignored these thoughts saying, okay, maybe it's just a phase, it'll pass, because that's what you hear. So individually, how do you assess where you stand? And when do you
Mhm.
realize that, okay, maybe I should go speak to a professional about it, or it's time to, go to someone and
Mhm.
speak?
So, firstly, before I answer that, I think that we also have to understand that therapy doesn't have to be only when you're experiencing major symptoms. I feel like it could be benefit, like it could benefit anyone and everyone. It can
yeah.
reduce your risk of developing major symptoms. So you don't have to have like a reason to go to a therapist. But to answer like your question again, um, to understand symptoms again, it goes back to like knowing what it is, and that's why it's so important to have mental health literacy. But very basic things is like you've got to ask yourself if it's affecting you every single day, and if
Yeah,
it's
I was gonna say the
affecting
same thing. Yeah.
your functionality every day. Are you able to do the things you normally do? Are you able to like go to work or go for your cricket practice or whatever it is that you have to do? Are you able to do these things? If it's affecting your daily functions, I would say that that's a big indicator to probably seek professional help. And then
Mhm.
there are general other indicators of like your diet change. So if you're eating too much or you're eating too less, which leads to weight loss or weight gain. Your sleep patterns. So are you getting enough sleep? Is it erratic? Are you sleeping through the night a full, whatever, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours or whatever, however long you sleep? Or are you sleeping like just 2 hours and then not not feeling okay? So I think those are some of the basic things that you can be a little aware of. I
Mhm.
mean, there's much
So,
more.
yeah, is there something like a personality test online where someone can take and assess their mental health? Do you have tools like that available for free that someone can just Google right now?
Yeah, there are different tests that you have. So, personality test is one thing, but then there are tests for depression, there are tests for anxiety, there are you have different psychometric tests. So there are tests, and I think most of them are available online. But
Okay.
Mhm.
yeah, but I'm not sure. I would still suggest going and meeting someone, a professional, getting professional help
Okay.
rather than, because it can get tricky sitting behind a computer and reading like everything on Google. It can get problematic and it might not be as helpful as you would think.
Understand.
Yeah,
Even when
Aksh.
it comes to like our health, how a lot of people say don't Google it, like
Yeah.
because sometimes Google gives you a lot of information that might not necessarily be true, and it also
Mhm.
might cause you more anxiety or freak you out more. So I think I agree with everything that Kai said. It's always better to go in instead of Googling too much, because that might give you information that you might believe is true, but you don't know that. And it also applies from person to person. It's so different. So
Mhm. Yeah, I know Viraj wants to say something because I can see him fidgeting, but I just want to add that, one thing I realized that whenever you're looking up symptoms for a couple of problems, like what happens is if you look at the first page and you're like, okay, I'm safe. Like, what I have is not over here. But then you'll go to the second page and be like, damn, it's over here. Like, yeah, I have this, I have this. And then you start looking for web pages that include what you're looking for, right? And it becomes some kind of an echo chamber in your head. So that's a massive problem, right?
Yeah.
Looking this stuff
yes.
up on Google. But yeah, Viraj.
Statements here, and I want you guys to help me bust if it's a myth or a fact. Okay, so we'll go like that. So I'll read out a
Do I get to
statement.
participate?
if you want,
Why do I
Akshay.
have to sit out
can
front?
answer
Okay, I
first.
don't have a degree. I
You
can't.
can
Sit.
Yeah, Akshay,
participate.
actually, it's a good idea. You should guess first, and then they'll bust it out if
Yes,
it's real or
first.
not.
So,
Okay, shit. So I'm the guinea pig. So
Yeah,
I'm the
yeah.
guy who's gonna take flack online. How dare you say this, Akshay? It's 2020.
Okay. The first statement is people with depression can just snap out of it and be happy. Akshay, what do you think?
Okay. Okay. My cultural upbringing has told me that yes, you can go hit the gym, walk it off. But I have also read somewhere that it's, chemical things happening in your brain. So it's not necessarily something under your control. So I say no.
Okay. Who? You're right. Yeah. A- and
definitely,
why do you guys think that myth exists? Why do you think people say these things? And does it come from a lack of, again, literacy, like I had said, and you had also
I
said
think
earlier?
so. It's just ignorant.
100%.
So,
You
so,
don't
so
know
basically
enough.
say, why can you not get, sorry, what's the question? Like, why can you not walk it off basically?
Yeah, I mean,
Why
yeah, in
can't you
simple
snap out of
words.
depression?
That's like saying I have an ACL injury, but just walk it off. It's gonna be fine. Like it's as
Exactly.
ridiculous as that.
One can be healed just through medication. Myth or fact?
False.
Yeah.
That's something I believe. I think it takes a lot more things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think that when you know if they just go to a psychiatrist and they take the medications that they need, they'll be perfectly fine. But I think there's a lot more than that. That's why they say there's a big relationship between there should be a big relationship with a psychiatrist and a psychologist, counselor, therapist, because it works hand in hand. I think for example, if I was suffering with depression, then I think even if I was on an SSRI or SNRI, I think at the same time, I would still need to go to therapy, because there's obviously a lot of things that I need to explore as to why I'm feeling this way. So I think it both goes hand in hand. I don't think just medication would work in that situation. So
Mhm.
Plus, I
So
think
what else is important though? Just like if you could briefly mention it, like besides medication.
were you going to say something? Kai?
no, I just want to say that when you're looking at medication, what it does is it reduces your symptoms. That's like the main thing for medication. Like a very basic example is um, if you're anxious, you will, and that leads you to be very irritable, very fidgety. The medication will reduce those symptoms, so you might not be as fidgety or restless as you were. So
Mm.
medication is specifically for reducing those symptoms, but there's a lot more that goes into it.
Exactly.
So this is something. It's funny that you mentioned this because a lot of people have this particular problem with the entire pharma industry. They say that they cure, they hide symptoms, but they don't provide a cure. Do you feel that's true? Like there's a difference between hiding symptoms and actually curing the problem at its root.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what it does basically. It reduces your symptoms, but it doesn't
Heal
cure
you
you from
Yeah.
in
from the
any.
source.
So, Akshay, you had said, like you just said, right? Like, what can you do other than medication to, help and heal the situation? So, from a personal experience and personal standpoint, like, I agree with Kai that the medicine is not the solution. And outside of that, there is a lot of understanding you need to do, introspection, be it through a therapist or like just self-evaluation. You need to understand the root of the problem, because it lies somewhere within you. The answers are there, like more often than not, at least. And I'm just speaking from personal standpoint. I know it's different for everyone, but from a personal standpoint, I think it's understanding why you're reacting a certain way and why you're behaving the way you are, and understanding and accepting that part of your life, or like even
Mhm.
dealing with it at its root. And that's what gives you the closure, because I think a lot of my reactions and my erratic behavior was due to a lack of closure and lack of understanding of certain situations and how to react.
Mhm. Viraj, I remember you mentioned your experience with the psychiatrist or like psychologist when you went with your mom, right? Since you were talking about pharma pills, like what did he tell you?
Yeah. She or something wrote down a list of fucking medications that I needed, or stuff like that. And I was looked at it and I literally joked. I said, "Sir, kilo mein doge ki kg mein doge ki packet ke hisab se?" And then we just broke out in laughter because there was so much on that list. I was like, "This is fucked up, dude! Like so much medication." And my mom, I was just enacting to my mom. I
You
was like,
went to a
"I'll come home."
psychologist and they give you them at like a
I
psychiatrist,
don't
so they
remember.
gave
I think it was a doctor. I don't remember exactly, man. It was a while back, and I was not in a state to remember things. I just went. I was like enacting this like with 2 bags in front of me. I was like, "This is all my meds, mom." So it's funny.
Okay, what happens if you over medicate though? Because I know that there are a couple of people, and it's a serious issue that they're going to people seeking help, and this is what they give them. Like, what happens when doctors sometimes they get commissions from these pharma companies and they're over medicating people? Like, what happens to these people?
Um, I don't know if I can contribute much to that, but because I feel like I still need more knowledge about that in specific. But I definitely think if you start taking more dosage of certain medications, it can lead to an addiction. Which
Okay.
is that's something that because if it's making you feel a certain way, if it's making you sleep more, whatever it is, there's different like to every medication, it works in different ways. But I think the one part is it can lead to an addiction. So I think you have to be very careful of how much you're taking and follow what your psychiatrist has told you, like in terms.
Myth or fact? Mental health problems are rare. Akshay, mental illnesses are rare, rather.
I grew up believing they are rare, but while researching for this episode, I came across some stat which said that 1 in 6 Indians has a serious mental illness. So that kind of just blew my mind, man. Like if you walk down the street, you're gonna run into like 160 people, 200 people. That means like what, 10, 15 people have serious mental illnesses. That's just mind blowing. So no, I don't believe it, but I know for a fact it's true.
Kai, do you want to break to him the actual number?
I don't know. I'm not sure, but I think it's 1 in 4 people.
Yeah, that's what I also read, is 1 in 4.
Okay,
I've read
so
that
wait,
too.
let's have
So,
a game right now.
your
Who's the
math is
crazy guy
wrong.
over here? I point to the top left corner of my screen.
Which is not the top left on my screen, which means it will
Problematic.
come across as Dhanya.
I know that's. Oh wait, no, that's you for me. Never mind.
For everyone else, it's me.
Oh wow. So even Zoom knows, bro. Okay, but no, that's crazy. We're laughing about
Yeah,
it, but that's just
but-
crazy. 1 in 4.
Yeah,
Wow.
and Kai, do you wanna?
And we're talking serious mental illness.
Yeah, Kai, do you wanna
No.
dive further into this?
I was just gonna say it's so like the way you're answering the question is so fascinating because you're like, I was told to believe in one thing, but now since I've like read or whatever, I know that it's this. And that's really cool. And I think that's exactly how it is. Like we're brought up with such nonsense. And then when we really read about it is when we understand what it really is. And
Yeah,
it's
it's actually a big problem. Like like you said, I grew up hearing one thing, believing one thing. It's a part of my, it's a fabric of my mind. And even when I read a stat like this, I try my best to like take that information and assimilate into the way I think, but it just doesn't happen. Like I know this number, but I just don't feel that way. And it's because of, how many years I've grown up having this, like, that other thought. So yeah, it's pretty sad.
the thing is that mental illness is so invisibilized. Like, firstly, because you literally can't see it. So it's not like a cut or a wound. So you physically can't see it. And the other thing is that we live in a society which it's such a huge stigma to talk about it that you will never really know who is experiencing it from the people around you. And so I think that is the biggest thing. Like you're like, shit, 1 in 4 people, that's like a lot, but it's only because we've not stopped talking about it, we just don't talk about it. So we don't know. But if it was more open to talk about, you would realize that it's actually all around you.
So coming to my next statement, you don't get a mental illness if you're successful.
No, I don't believe that. And a very close friend of mine, he just he burst that bubble when I was in college, because for a certain point, I think a lot of, a middle class or lower middle class, or anyone who's poor and not extremely rich, like a lot of us have this belief that, yeah, when I get money, everything's going to be fine. I'm going to be chilling on a yacht. I'm going to have my fucking Hublot on my hand, and everything's going to be hunky dory. But no, that's not true, because, I had a friend who was very well off, and this guy had, he had a great deal, like a family business, plenty of rental properties. Like he was never going to be broke. He's never going to be broke in his life. He would chill, smoke, drink, all of that. But then but the thing about this guy, he was like really open, honest, and raw, right? So he would tell me the kind of situations he's been through, and what his childhood growing up with, dysfunctional parents, going through a divorce, the toll it took on his mind, and the anxiety he feels and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, like the way you're thinking about people of having money and not having problems, that's just not true. That's something I learned. So I say no.
Yeah, I think a statement I want to mention here just before like I get to you guys to answer this and dive deeper into it is, when you are struggling, it's a common thing for your friends or family to say, "Arey, just focus on your work. It'll all be fine. Once you like dive deeper into your work and focus and work hard, it'll all go away." As if like that's the solution. And so that's
Bro,
why,
even the fact that अरे वो क्या डिप्रेशन के बारे में बात कर रहा है, उसके पास तो पैसा है, पापा का बिजनेस है,
yeah,
उसका
Yeah.
कुछ नहीं होगा.
A lot of people say that.
yeah. Kai, do you have anything to do you
Um,
want to say anything here?
I think like as friends to support someone going through this, I think the very basic thing that we can do is just listen. I think people don't realize how much that can um, really make someone feel that they are being heard. So just listening to a friend and empathizing with them, like, goes a really long way. I'm sorry, I forgot your question.
It's okay. You answered it, so it's fine.
Okay.
But so last question here, and then we'll move on. And this ties perfectly into what I wanted to move on into. So I'm gonna just ask it. It's common to experience guilt while experiencing mental health symptoms.
Yes.
Yeah, that's correct. But Kai
Like
and
you
Dhanya, do
somehow
you?
convince yourself you're a bad person,
Yeah,
which is why you're experiencing this.
exactly. So Dhanya and Kai, do you want to explain why that happens and how we as outsiders can help people reduce that feeling of guilt, or what are the ways that somehow we can help?
Should I go ahead?
Yeah.
Um, so I'll answer this, I think, from personal experience. I think that might be better. So what I've spoken about earlier, my experience with misophonia, and so literally through my teenage years, I spoke about it with absolutely no one. And one of the reasons is because I was so, I felt really guilty about it. And there was a lot of shame attached to it. Like, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling like this? And because there's um, a lot of rage that I experience, I feel even more guilty. I'm like, why am I feeling like this? And it's not a nice feeling, and you feel like a bad person, and then you isolate yourself even more. And it's only recently that I'm trying, like, I still feel really guilty because I walk away from people essentially who are triggering me. And then I'm like, I don't want them to feel bad. Like, it's not their fault, but
Mhm.
it's really affecting me, and I need to walk away from the situation if it's triggering me. And
Mhm.
it's not easy at all. And so um, there is a lot of guilt definitely that people feel, and I think again it comes from lack of conversation about it, because once I started speaking about it to my friends, and I'm really fortunate because I have had my close friends who I've been able to speak about it with, and they've been really sensitive. So even with like, so the crunching, like if you have chips and that crunching noise
Mhm.
really gets to me. And so
Mhm.
it's really sweet because like when they open a juice packet, they're like, "Guy, shit, do you want to put your earphones on, or is it okay?" And that's a great feeling, but at the same time, I still feel bad. I'm like, you all are having to do all this because of
Yeah.
what I feel, and so it's pretty complex. And I mean, I do, but having a conversation and knowing that friends are there to really empathize, it really helps. And Viraj, that comes to the second point of your question, like what can a friend do?
Yeah.
I think again, like it's basically just listening to the person, being empathetic to their situation, and I would also say again, educating yourself on it, because
Mhm.
um, like if I share that I'm experiencing misophonia, if you can just go Google it a little bit, understand what the symptoms are, how I can help, it really goes a long way. And at the
Mhm.
same time, I think it's really important to add that um, we can't expect our friends to take full responsibility of our healing, and it's a huge burden, a huge burden to do that. So again, if you're experiencing something, I would say please get professional help. There's absolutely no harm in doing that.
Hmm.
Friends can only help you so much.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
I
sure.
personally I was getting really angry the last few days, or when people have been talking about mental health. Like I was telling Akshay this, people putting up stories like, you should talk to your friends if you're struggling. But a lot of the times people don't realize it's not easy to talk, right? If someone is struggling, they feel like a burden, and which is one of the prime reasons they don't want to talk about it. Or like, you just want to curl up in a ball in your bed and not move because you feel like a burden on people. And also a lot of the times when you do open up, unfortunately, even in my past, I've had people who've said, man, I can't deal with this is too intense, rather than being a little kinder towards the topic and saying things like, okay, yeah, I understand how I don't understand how you feel personally, and maybe you should go to a professional. Like, the way you say something can really affect someone. I was talking to you about this yesterday, wasn't I like, where how someone says something and phrases something goes a long way in how it can affect another person, and you may or may not realize how you say something and the kind of what kind of an effect it may have on another person, and why it's so important to be kind, especially in the age of social media, where yesterday, like for example, I had seen this, so the BCCI, the cricket team's Instagram page had posted like a guess who kind of a post, where they posted an arm of a cricketer. Okay, and one of the comments, like random person's comment, was ye kis garib ka haath hai. Okay, and the cricketer had seen that comment and replied to it saying, "ये उस गरीब का हाथ है जो अपने देश के लिए खेलता है." Like, but in that sense, like he's one person who's at least like, okay, fine, he called it out, but the effect that statement can possibly have on someone who's maybe not strong enough to reply, or like he feels like shit because, oh, he's like, dude, I'm doing so much and I'm getting like just abuse back for it. Like, and I feel like there's a lot of rudeness out there in the world, and people can do so much more to be kind, but they rather just get the likes or like the validation from another people.
Yeah, I actually have something to go off of what you were saying, Viraj. I think the first most important thing is not assuming that you know what they're going through, and also because you're not living their experiences, period. And I think so we can't understand 100% what they're going through, but we can empathize. So I think, and like you said, some people might not be able to talk. They might just want to curl up in their bed and not talk. And I think, for example, if you see a friend who you know is struggling in some way, but you know they're refusing to talk, or they don't want to talk right now, I think all you can do is saying, hey, I don't know what you're going through, I don't understand, but I have 2 years, I'm here, I will hear you out, I support you, I care about you, and if you need anything, I'm right here. And when they feel like they're ready to talk to you, they will.
Thanks,
And
Anya. Okay, I'm just gonna run through the last five questions that I have. Like, let's take like 45 seconds to answer each. Like, just you and Kaizin. So, what are your thoughts on India being called the most depressed country on the planet?
What are my thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, like about that stats. Like I really can't answer about that, but I can understand that like in our country we obviously don't talk about it. There's absolutely no conversation about it. There's such a huge stigma. There's such a huge taboo that I I think what we have to do is just start talking about it. I don't understand how you can reach a stat like that though. I feel like it's something that affects anyone from anywhere. Our
Hmm.
population is so crazy that maybe like that's
Yeah,
one of the factors.
probably.
Hmm.
But generally I feel anywhere, any country. We just have to start talking about it more.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Dhanya, do you have anything to add to that
No,
or
I
say?
agree with everything she said. I think definitely I think it's because maybe of the population. I didn't know about this before either. And I
Mm-hmm.
think talking about it, because not a lot of people in India have come out and said this is what I'm struggling with because of all the stigma attached to it. And this is everywhere. I'm not saying just India, but we know that this is huge. Like there's a lot of stigma back home.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay, so next question. We have been called the anxious generation. Like, why is that, or do you believe it's true?
I like maybe in previous generations, I definitely think anxiety has been around, but they didn't know that this is what anxiety is and this is how it feels like. I think with my own like family members, they didn't like before know what anxiety was and they felt it, and now they're like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling anxious because I've been talking to them and telling them this is what it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
So I think because there was obviously a lot of stigma back then and not as much education about mental health, that people didn't
Mm-hmm.
know this is how it felt. So I think this has existed for years and years. People just didn't know what it was. And I think now because there's more awareness, people are able to like point out and identify this. Oh yes, I am anxious. So that's why maybe
Mm-hmm.
feels like more people are talking about it now. So that's why we're the
Sure.
anxious generation.
Yeah, but just a
But
quick
it's
counter
also
to what you just said, a quick counter to what you just said. A lot of people are saying that this influx of technology now, the last 10, 15 years, is what has caused our generation to become more anxious than our parents or our grandparents. Is there an element of truth to that, or is that not correct?
so much pressure on social media when like especially the girls who look at like all these models and these Instagram
Mm-hmm.
influencers and their lives and they want to live up to that. And I think there's like then we can look at this in so many different angles, but even especially now with like vaping culture, and like it starts at a very very young age, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you see other people doing it and at school and then you start doing it, it can lead to an addiction, right? Or drugs or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I think definitely it probably ties a lot into exposure. We're exposed to a lot of things at a very early age. And I think now the
Okay.
upcoming generation, I don't even know when, probably way earlier than we were exposed to. So
My next
I,
question is that a lot of people from our generation, and including me and Viraj at some points, like there's a need to drink and there's a need to smoke, or for some people there's a need to get high. Like the way I look at it is that you're just basically trying to change your mental states, right? You're trying to go from one state to another that you enjoy more. What are your views on that? Like, why are people drinking? Why are people trying to get high?
Kai.
Um, I mean, I can't really answer that in a very generic way, but peer pressure is like obviously a
Mm-hmm.
huge factor, and I think everyone has this need to feel a sense of belonging, and so we tend to do things to be a part of a group or to be a part of something, and that's where it kind of starts. I don't think anyone starts drinking or smoking because they really want to and are like alone and sitting at home. It usually starts because a friend is doing that, and so you're going to join them or something. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
it starts from there. I think maybe, yeah, just the sense of belongingness to it.
I I agree, and I also think it's an escape from reality for a lot of people, right? It's because
Yeah.
like when you're so stressed out about whatever it can be, if you're gonna drink or you're gonna smoke or whatever drugs, then that kind of just like you're not thinking about it anymore. You're not feeling as stressed, so it's an escape from reality. And then when you know you're feeling that way, and you can feel that way for like a long number of times and not actually like address what you're going through and what you're feeling, because that seems like
Mm-hmm.
the easier option. That's when it starts getting tricky, and that's when it could lead to an addiction, because you're just escaping from the problem. And that's why like so
Mm-hmm.
many people, like at the end of their day, they're like, oh, I just need to I need to drink a couple of glasses of wine, or I need a drink because I just can't deal with this,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
yeah. Kai, sorry, you were going to say something.
No, I think I totally agree with what you're saying. And I feel like if I had to say our generation is, if I had to label something, I would say like maybe instant gratification is like one of the biggest things of our generation. And so, and all of these things kind of do come from them. So I think that's a major thing that like plays a part in our lives. Like we just, and we don't, like you said, our lives are so rushed. We don't want to cope with it. So these are different ways of coping with the situation, even though it's harmful ways of coping. It's still
Mm-hmm.
quicker ways of coping because you feel like, okay, uh, that temporary relief is there. And so,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. This is not exactly, they're not directly related, but in some ways it is. I remember this guy called Naval Ravikant. Okay, he's an entrepreneur. He basically said that our generation is the generation of abundance. So what he meant was that our parents' generation, they didn't have enough. They didn't have enough food. They didn't have enough information, media, stuff to keep them hooked. But our generation, it's almost like a minefield that, like, wherever you walk, you're bound to fall into some kind of a trap or the other. Like whether it's gaming, or it's watching Netflix, YouTube, porn, weed, alcohol, smoking, all these different things. So he was just saying that, yeah, the biggest fight for our generation is to take control of ourselves and be able to, resist these temptations. So yeah, that's just something I wanted to mention. Advice do you have for listeners, if any? Like, what can people do today that might put them in a better mental state?
that can put them in a better mental state
I mean,
or
just in a better place mentally.
oh, I think routine is something that really helps, and setting goals really helps as well. So that can be small goals, it can be long term goals, whatever it is. Um, but I think an important thing is that when we're talking about mental health, we have to realize that it's extremely subjective.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has different needs, and
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna have to figure out what works for you. Like Viraj said that what you practice in the morning and at night, and Tanya, you said about the worry time thing. So you just gotta figure out what works for you.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think definitely agree with what you said. I think a lot of us are very extremely hard on ourselves, and it's like feel like again we're supposed to do certain things and like put so much pressure on us. And like I think we have to give ourselves credit, even if it seems like it's very small. I think we should still. It's all about baby steps because we can't achieve anything setting very high goals. Like I think we have to set very, even if it's like getting up in the morning and I'm going to like breathe for 5 minutes. Like the smallest of goals will take you such a long way. And I think not being hard on yourself and telling yourself you will be okay. If you're waking up, good job.
Mm-hmm.
If you're like brushing your teeth, good job. If you're drinking your coffee, good job. Like just small things, like giving yourself credit for that, because sometimes some people might not be able to even get to that place.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Does
definitely
meditation
small
have any
steps.
tangible benefits?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, 100%. I love meditation. I don't think it's for everyone. I definitely don't think for everyone it's going to work. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, you can find something else. But because meditation also requires a lot of practice, and time and patience, because uh, you're sitting there and you're closing your eyes. Sometimes you could be fidgety, a lot of thoughts can come to your head. So the more you practice it, the easier it gets and the more you start loving it. But it's not for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Also, can I just add, like, um, there's like a lot of responsibility that comes speaking about um, a sensitive topic like this. And like, I would just want to say that, whatever we're sharing over here is like from our knowledge and our experiences. But at the end of the day, it's just the best thing to get professional help. There's so many resources that you can, um, get help from. So I think that's always just the best thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that. Right. Okay. I think that's good. And thank you guys for joining us. I learned a lot personally, and I'm sure Akshay learned a lot too. Uh,
I
and
learned a lot too.
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, and I really appreciate you guys coming on, and I hope everyone watching this can take something back from this. And just last thing before we go, is there any books or any videos that you recommend that people can watch just to learn more about the subject, if any? If not, it's fine.
Maybe I'm an unlikely source for this, but I have a really nice suggestion. So there's an app that I've been using for the last more than a year now, and it's not that BS headspace. Like, I just personally don't like that. It's called Waking Up. It's by this guy called Sam Harris, who is kind of an authority on the practice of being mindful and just meditation in general. So we'll probably put up a picture of the app, and I have a pretty neat hack. I'm going to give you an email address as well. So if you send them an email saying that you don't have the ability to pay for the app right now, I think it costs like $115 for the year. You send an email to that address and they actually give you 1 year free access. So I've been using it for a year, and it's fantastic because he kind of teaches you the concepts behind mindfulness, and there's a lot of theory involved as well. So he kind of tells you what you're doing or why you're doing it and what to look for. So it's almost like practicing it as some kind of a hobby or sport. So we're definitely going to give the link for that.
I do have some books that I have liked. I think I'll send you a few of the names
Yeah,
of
I'll
them.
put it all in the description. That's what I'll do.
Yeah.
I'll put the
Yeah,
names in the
so
description.
books that are definitely like videos out there. A lot of podcasts. I've really been into podcasts, if that's your thing.
Yeah,
And yeah, there's this
I know, yeah,
podcast that I
podcasts
really
are
like called
interesting, right, Viraj?
yeah, I can name one that I think people might want to watch.
What do you mean? A movie?
Inception.
He was referring to this one, Dhanya.
Yeah, Dhanya, thanks for ruining the joke. Just kidding.
Okay, but go on.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
Um, so podcast. I'll send you like
Okay.
a list.
I'll
Yeah.
put it all in the description, guys, if you're interested. And Kai, you stuff? Same?
I'm gonna have to think about it, but I'll suggest some
Okay,
some
yeah, you
movies.
send it to me and I'll add it on.
Yep.
Okay.
Right.
Cool.
Thanks, guys, for
Awesome.
joining us. This is it from us, and we hope you enjoyed the episode. Please leave a like and share it with your friends. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.